Chinitta Chocolate is here. Morris, that is. Chinitta Chocolate Morris. Chinitta, how we doing?
How are you? I am blessed. How are you guys?
Look, we doing well. It's always good to see you. Still looking good, still doing your thing, still making it happen, still got
Praise God.
that marvelous glow that you've always had. And
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
For coming on. It's my pleasure. Listen, so we're not going to waste much time. You know, I've always enjoyed your form of art as well as your form of ministry in terms of how you make people. You've always been that beacon of light in terms of Black. And I mean, over the years, through the decades, throughout just so many ages, not too many ages. I'm not calling it. You know, just through the ages.
It's been a minute. I've been doing it for a minute now.
You've been doing it for a minute. BET Comic View. Back in the day, a lot of these youngins may not know about. I was young at the time, of course, but they may not know about Def Comedy Jam. You were one of the trailblazers that literally opened the doors up for a lot of women. We definitely salute. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna let you tell us about the journey.
About the journey? Well, I got started kind of straight out of college. I took a job in Baltimore, didn't like my job, but I knew even after I took the job that I wanted to be an entertainer. And so I was working sun up to sundown. So I didn't have time to do anything that I wanted to do, do anything to fulfill my dreams. And so one day I didn't like my job anyway, but I packed up my car with everything that I owned and hit I-95 going south and never looked back. And I moved to Atlanta, and lo and behold, a Black comedy club, the first Black comedy club, had just opened in Atlanta. They already had an establishment in LA and it was doing well. Robin Harris was the house MC. And so they opened in Atlanta, and that one became bigger than the one in LA. And it was a move that I made at the right time. I was at the right place at the right time, so to speak, and found this Black comedy club, and they gave me time to go on. They had amateur nights on Tuesday nights, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Last year, what was the 20? Because I started 1990. November 27th, 1990. So last year was 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 30 years ago. So yeah. And the rest is history,
So how do you define, in terms of the art of it, in terms of, because a lot of people, especially some people have stage fright, so to even actually have but you got a lot of funny people. I'll say that you have a lot of funny people that's out there, but they pretty much keep their humor and they're just overall, I guess, style of comedy within the confines of, their home or at school or amongst their. What sort of influenced you to actually want to take this thing and make it an actual profession in terms of comedy?
I don't know if I thought that far ahead. I was just, as a kid, I was the saddest clown you ever wanted to know. I always joked around and played around, but my childhood was so bad that was just my way of surviving. And I always had to defend myself from jokes about me, about my complexion and things like that. So it actually wound up working in my favor because, in comedy, you have hecklers. So you have to learn to handle yourself. Well, and not many female comedians are able to deal with the audience when they get hecklers. And that was one of the things that was a specialty of mine. Right. And so it was just something that just came naturally. I praise God for the gift of comedy. I don't think I realized the dream as big as it became. Sure. And it wasn't until it became everything that it was that I realized, God has great things in store for you. And so, I'm just one of those people. If I don't like something, if it's not working in my favor, I'm not going to stay there and force it to work. And, with the job in Baltimore, it was a blessing to have a job right out of college. But hey, this ain't for me. Let me go see what else is in store. Let me see what else is out there for me to explore. And so I packed my bags. I was young. I didn't have any children or anything like that. No better time to do it. You just got to step out on faith and see what else is out there for you. And I did that, and it paid off.
Made it happen.
Yeah.
Listen, so let's kind of back up for a minute. You mentioned your name. I know in any industry that a lot of people may say is male dominated, that you have some tough crowds out there, some tough markets, because you just weren't in like these chitlin markets. You're in big market cities in terms of Atlanta being a mecca, on a come up, sort of in comparison or competition at that time as far as that particular club with LA. So about that, I mean, of course, where does the name Chocolate come from, and how are you able to sort of navigate and pretty much dominate within the field of comedy?
Well, it's funny because one of the things that I decided to do when I first started doing comedy, let's talk about the obvious. Let's talk about this chocolate skin, since apparently it's something that people notice. They let me know that they notice, because you don't just get a compliment of you being a pretty girl. You got to be pretty to be dark skinned, And so, that was the first thing I tackled when I started doing comedy. I had jokes about being chocolate. And I made all of these references to chocolate candies, Hershey's Kisses, and things like that. And Earthquake and I were, comedian Earthquake, he and I were very, very good friends. And 2 weeks before I was scheduled to tape Def Comedy Jam, we would be out, going to lunch or something like that. And people say, aren't you that chocolate girl from the Comedy Act Theater? And so people didn't remember Chinitta. They wouldn't, it's a mouthful. And so people didn't remember Chinitta Morris. They remembered the chocolate girl. And so he just said, hey, why don't you just call yourself Chocolate? It's much easier. And that was 2 weeks before Def Comedy Jam. And so it just stuck after that. I was branded after Def Comedy Jam.
So once you got sort of comfortable, always say comfortable in your own skin with chocolate, how did that allow you to sort of transition, navigate, in some ways, be successful within comedy, within that market? I guess, once it all sort of settled in, the brand was there, the name was there. How did that sort of free you in a sense? Once you embraced that and you in some ways cherish it, how did it free you in some way?
Well, I mean, it helped me to embrace it because people liked it, and they remembered chocolate, it stuck out, and it became a bit of a novelty. And so I embraced it because that was something I had never experienced. I had never experienced being liked or celebrated because of my complexion. And here I was, I would get people telling me all the time, hey, you helped me to really appreciate my complexion and appreciate the skin I'm in, and, know that I'm beautiful. And so it was a blessing in that sense, of course. But, just to, like I said, I just hear the first time I was being celebrated for being dark, and I was what do you call it? I'm lost for words here, but I was representing a culture that was a lot of times overlooked, and that was especially Black women, dark-skinned women, and so yeah.
So you were on the road with some pretty big names back in the day. So you was there with the Bill Bellamy's. You were there with the young Martin Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
You had other acts, Chris Tucker, the young Chris Tucker that was on the come up.
Yes. I remember when Chris, because Chris, he was just funny out the box. And it was funny to watch because here we had been doing comedy for about a year, maybe a year. And this young dude comes in, he's just ripping up the stage just from the very onset. And then just a couple months later, he was like, hey, I'm moving to LA. And he had a lot of haters saying, you'll be back. Yeah. And it was good to see him stepping out on his dreams, but it was hard to watch people saying, oh, you'll be back. You too young. You're not ready, blah, 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 blah. And I remember calling him and saying, hey, go out there, do your thing. I'll be praying for you. You know, you're going to do well. And so, you know, I toured with Bernie Mac and, you know, D.L. Hughley, Jamie Foxx. My very first night on stage, Angela Means was the MC, by Felicia. She and I became really good friends. Jonathan Slocum, Arnez J. But Jamie was the middle and D.L. Hughley was the headliner.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, I came up with the greatest, and it's good to see everybody doing so very well. And I'm proud of everybody. I'm proud of everybody, but I'm also proud of where I am.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about where you are, because you got the call. You know, when some people get the call, I'm not talking about the phone call. I'm talking about the call of grace, as well as a higher call, a higher purpose. Mm-hmm. But you stay within your own skin, not your sexy chocolate skin, but more so the skin of your gift. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about it. So you decided to, you know, okay, we're going to put the as they would say, secular mm-hmm. on the shelf, or put it aside and just do away with it. You mm-hmm. want to make people laugh in the form of, I hate to say religion, but it's in the form of medicine. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that, the transition as well as the transformation you made from one market to the next.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, things were going great. You know, my star was rising fast, you know, probably too fast. And I was making more money than I ever dreamed of. I praise God for the blessings that he afforded me. But then, you know, one fateful night, he spoke to my heart and called me in out of darkness. And I answered that call with a yes. You know, I knew a lot was on the line. I knew that it could cost me a lot. But here I had gotten revelation. I'd always had a love for God. I thought I was in love with him, but it wasn't until I truly committed my life to Christ that I realized how to really be in love with God and show that love for God and live for God the way that he has called us to, and not do it the way we think it is supposed to be done. We surrender to him, not him to us. And so it was, the choice wasn't hard. I had made up my mind, but it was hard in the fact that the secular didn't know what to do with me, because I had cleaned up my act and now I'm preaching Jesus. My show is inundated with Jesus jokes, and the church didn't know what to do with me, because they had seen the Def Jams and the BETs and you know, they like, okay, no, I don't know. It was really hurtful to see how the church handled it, because it took a long time to be embraced by the church. And so I'm in limbo at the time. You know, it's like I praise God for the money that I had saved up, because at one point I wasn't working at all. You know, I had a lot of shows to get canceled, tours to get canceled, or cancel me. And, you know, literally asking me if I was going to do my chocolate material or was I going to do my saved material. And when I said my saved material, you know, I'm canceled from this tour. And so, you know, I had to deal with a lot of that, but I wouldn't take anything for my journey now. Eventually, the church began to embrace me. I praise God for people like Dr. Bobby Jones, who gave me that platform in spite of what he knew about me and the jokes that I told before. You know, he trusted the God in me to give me a platform. And so because of him introducing me to a lot of people in the gospel industry, you know, I began to get more work and stuff. And so, you know, it was some people who would take that chance to see if I was really, you know, transformed.
Right.
So, you know.
Let me ask you a question. What was, when you made the transition, was gospel comedy even a thing? I mean, because I think, coming up, when you hear the word gospel, of course, you think about grandmama, and you think about, that Jesus bled the cross, and all that good stuff. So was comedy even, was there a market for that? I mean, of course, there probably was definitely a need for it. But was there actually like comedians that were actually doing gospel comedy, Christian comedy?
The funny thing is, it was 1998 when I gave my life to the Lord. And it was absolutely a market for it. And there were absolutely Christian comedians who were doing it. You had Sister Cantaloupe, you had Broderick Rice. And even though Jonathan Slocum doesn't consider himself a Christian comedian, he's always been clean. He's always, because I came up with Jonathan and I were at the same comedy clubs, but Jonathan never conformed to cussing or doing dirty jokes. He was always clean. And so you had, and then there's the white Christian comedians. So there was a big market for it, but I was oblivious to this. So when I had made this decision to follow Jesus, I actually was going to quit doing comedy. I have a degree. I was just going to go and do something different, go work a regular job or something. And I don't know how Broderick Rice got my number. All I know is I got a call from Broderick Rice. We were talking. He said, I don't think that's what God wants you to do. I don't think he wants you to stop doing comedy. He just wants you to do it different. He wants you to do it for him. And I didn't know how to do that. And I prayed and said, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, you have to help me write a new script. When I made the choice, I threw out as much dirty comedy as I knew to throw out, and kept what I thought was okay. And God gives you that grace. And so, in the meantime, as you're continuing on stage, I did a lot of bombing because I was contracted for shows for years out, and here my comedy is changing. People are yelling from the audience, do this joke and do that joke. And I'm like, no, I don't do that anymore. And so you have to make a decision. Am I going to blaze it with the stuff that they want to hear? Or am I going to do this stuff that they're not used to hearing and take the chance of bombing? And so it was rough, but I wanted to stay true to, one thing I hate is hypocrisy. I hate hypocrisy. And I just refuse to be that.
So what was some of the feedback you got, I guess, in the early stages from your former colleagues, friend? You mentioned the good brother Jonathan. What was some of the other maybe big names? No, you got to say the names. What was some of the other feedback you got from those that like, hold up, well, we just on tour a year ago?
Right.
What was this? What was some of the things you remember, you can point out that were said, or that pretty much you had in some ways, I won't say answer to, but just pretty much soak in?
Oh man, listen, a lot of my friends, they didn't understand. My friends in the secular, they're like, chocolate. What do you mean you're saved? And so you don't, I remember specifically Don DC Curry saying to me one night at Uptown Comedy Corner, he was like, well, can't you just be chocolate on stage and be saved, in your personal life? And I said, hey, if chocolate is going to hell, Chinitta is too.
Yeah.
So, I got a lot of flack, not so much flack. They loved me. They didn't want to see me throw a lot away. They're like, okay, we're trying to get where you are. What do you mean you're stepping down? And so they didn't understand it. But truthfully, and I didn't realize this at the time, there was another brother. He never made it to TV or anything like that, but he started with us when we were really young and first starting to do comedy. And I remember he gave his life to Christ and he just walked away from everything. But he hadn't done the TV and established a name or anything like that. And I remember at that time, I didn't understand why he walked away from doing comedy, but he had made a decision to serve the Lord. And so I guess he had just decided, I'm not going to do this because I can't do this and serve the Lord. And you have people who think that you can do what you want to do, say what you want to say, and it's just comedy and that, but that's not what I get from the word that I read.
Oh. Yeah. So with that being said, can you talk about, was it more of a reinvention, or would you consider being somewhat of a transformation? Now, because some people say I had to reinvent myself, meaning major changes are made, things that I used to do, I can't do anymore, or transformation. I can still be me and do me. However, there's some small changes that I'm making that reflect maybe a higher call or a higher purpose. So if there was a comparison between the two, was it more of a transformation or a reinvention?
I'm going to say it's a transformation, because I think that the definitions that you gave for both of them, the one that you gave for reinvention belongs to transformation. Gotcha. I've been transformed in the likeness of Christ. It wasn't a reinvention because reinventing, you're trying to do something to spark a bigger interest from people who already follow you or knew you from way back when, to continue follow you and bring on other people to know you better, because now you're doing it bigger and different. But transformed, because I've been transformed in the likeness of Christ. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so my mind was renewed. And here's the difference. The money was a lot different in the church realm, or on the Christian comedy circuit. The money was a whole lot different and a whole lot less. So, my mind was transformed to know that it's not about me. I do this for God's glory, that the people of God will come to know him better, be more mature, and help them laugh themselves into greater maturity. For me, when God changed my heart and changed my life, he helped me to have a desire to help people of God become more mature in him.
Gotcha.
And not just be saved, but actually strive for more spiritual maturity, to be better people of God.
I love it. Now I got to sort of break this down, because any artist, they talk about where they pull their art from. Now you pulled your art, of course, from experiences, whether it be personal experiences or things you've seen or saw or witnessed, and you pretty much turned it to comedy. Now, so how do you prepare for Christian comedy? Were you in the church, you're looking at, who wig is the tightest, or or whose suit don't fit right, or how do you prepare for that? Like, how do you actually build that or look at it without being judgmental, as some would say, you being messy? How do you actually pull or make Christian comedy relevant and make it in some ways sort of embrace or just by all means comical? Like, how do you prepare for it? If you could give me some type of insight.
What's funny? Listen, I didn't grow up in the church. We went to church every blue moon, and I wanted to go to church, but my mom at the time, like I said, I had a really rough childhood. My mom at the time, she was a heroin addict. And so, we weren't going to church, and you can imagine growing up with a single parent who has 6 girls, and she's a heroin addict and an alcoholic. And no, we're not going to church. So you can imagine the heartbreak and the heartache that we had to deal with that type of upbringing. Praise God. My mom gave her life to Christ before she died, and she was clean 16 years before she passed. And so, God turned all of that around. So when I gave my life to Christ and began to go to church every Sunday, let me tell you, you couldn't get me to miss a Sunday. And I'm still traveling big time and all of that. And I would rearrange my flight schedules to get back in the church. So I was in church all the time, every time the doors open, because now I got a revelation. I want to be in the presence of God and his people. And so a lot of the stuff that I saw was incredibly new to me. I always wanted to be a part of a choir. I wind up joining the choir. You get to wear the robes and all of that. And so, you see a lot. You see a lot from the choir stand. You see a lot when you're sitting in the pews. And so, man, I'm a comedian, so my mind was just going when I see this stuff. And I'm telling you, church it's a lot of comedy going on in church. And like I think if anybody listens to my show, they'll know that bad breath has got to be one of my biggest pet peeves. Always has been. And man, I'm singing in the choir and I'm loving it, but we need some mints up in this mug, So it's like, y'all been doing choir stuff long before I got here. Y'all haven't gotten the revelation that mints is a must in the choir. So yeah, so it's a lot of stuff that you see. I'm a comedian, so
right.
I see this stuff and I'm like, I know this got to be funny to y'all. If y'all don't see this, I'm gonna point it out to you. And so.
Them anointed mints. I love it.
Right. Yeah. We need a mint ministry up in this mug. This is not okay. Just because you got the Holy Ghost, some things Jesus did not heal in the Bible. Why? Because some stuff you could just do yourself. Your breath ain't got to smell like that.
So, mint, they're on the way. She started a mint ministry. So y'all
come on, we got to do it.
Post-pandemic, one of the new installments will be the mint ministry. So you heard it here first. John Huey Radio.
Listen, we need mints in these masks. We need mints in the mask because now we're offending ourselves. Now some of us are realizing what many people have been trying to tell you for years. Your breath is toe up. and you can tell the ones whose breath is toe up because they wear their nose outside of their mask. They can't take it. Like, I can't do this. So
wow.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, of course you finished your book. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about, the message behind it, the motivation behind it, and what's this really all about. It's been out now for about what, 3 years?
No, about 2 years now. I dropped it in 2019. Okay. And it's still on Amazon. It's Gracefully Broken, Wonderfully Restored. I'm a very transparent person by the grace of God. And one thing the church has gotten away from is transparency. And so a lot of folks suffer in silence because they think they're the only ones going through it. Well, when this situation happened to me, I thought to myself, if I'm going through this, I know this has got to be happening more than people are speaking of. And actually nobody's speaking of it. And it needs to be talked about, and it's heavy. You gotta be prepared to read it. It's real. It's really real. And it's a situation that I went through in 2006, and the devil got me good. And here I am, this woman of God, on a mountaintop, living for the Lord and just trying to win souls to Christ. And before I know it, I found myself in sin that I had to fight my way out of. And I couldn't understand why God would allow the enemy to come at me like this. It just didn't make sense, and this ain't fair, and I hurt. But I knew that I loved the Lord way too much to stay. And it wasn't what I wanted. Imagine having to fight your way out of something that you don't even want. It's not even you. This is not, you never asked for this. You never, wanted this for one moment. And here I am having to fight my way out of sin that I don't even want. And so so the book is called Gracefully Broken, Wonderfully Restored, Overcoming Spiritual Seduction. A lot of people have been spiritually seduced into things in their lives that they don't even know how they got there. It can be adultery. It can be a whole lot of things. It can be homosexuality. And a lot of people don't even realize that was never your character, but you allowed the enemy to creep up in your life, and you just took it for, well, it must have been something I desired secretly, and sometimes it's spiritual seduction. Sometimes you've just been spirit. And my thing is, why don't pastors talk about stuff like this happening or being possible, so that we as people of God, when we're attacked like this, we know better how to handle it? Because after I've had a lot of testimonies that after people read my book, they were like, okay, so that's what I went through, and they didn't know. They didn't realize that that's what it was.
Wow. Dope. Give me that title one more time. A lot of words, but it's powerful in terms of the title. Go ahead. Tell me one more time.
Gracefully Broken. And that comes from when I first heard Tasha Cobb's song, Gracefully Broken, which is a beautiful, beautiful song. The words that she spoke in the beginning of the song, how he'll take you and he'll break you, but it'll be gracefully, where it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't destroy you, but he's trying to show you some stuff. Because even though I went through this, it worked out for my good. And I became a much more mature Christian who understood grace better, and who understood that I needed to extend grace and mercy more to other people when they fall, or when they fail, or when they offend me, or, and that same grace that I want for my own life, or that I need for my own life, I have to extend that same grace and not be judgmental, not be self-righteous, and learn to restore people back to God when they fall from grace. And so for years, I agonized that I had to go through this to learn this lesson. I often ask God, couldn't you have shown me a different way? And it wasn't God who put me through it, but he allowed me to go through it. Yeah. But it worked out for my good, because of it, I see things different. I love differently, and more like Christ. And I'm more gracious when I see people of God fall from grace.
So what will be your message to that? I'm gonna go back to the roots of comedy, to that comedian, or even just artist, because it's all art at the end of the other day. Your message to them in terms of them searching, still wondering, questioning, whether it be, what the next move is going to be, whether this is really for them, or, what's the wisdom that you will pass down to them in terms of, what to be mindful of. Do you follow your heart, know your God, know yourself? What will be that message when you think about your journey where you are today?
I would say, in everything, in all things, do everything that you do, that God will be glorified. If it's not going to glorify God, then don't do it. And that depends on how you feel about God. Are you do you live your life to serve him completely, or is he just a part-time love for you? If you really want to serve him and live for him wholeheartedly, then you have to trust him in the process. It may not look like you think it should look right now, but if you're faithful to God, he's going to bless you, and he's going to honor your faithfulness. He's faithful to us even when we're not faithful. He blesses us even when we don't deserve it. But just trust him to be God in your life, and trust him that he won't withhold any good thing from you. You have to also know, and this is one thing that is not often said, but this walk ain't easy. And when you make that commitment, doesn't mean that money's going to be thrown at your feet and you're going to be on easy street. You may go through a lot. You may not. You may be blessed off the top. You don't know how this is going to turn out, but let your heart be positioned so that you decide, come what may, I'm going to serve the Lord.
Love it. I love it. I love it. She goes by the name of Miss Chinitta Chocolate Morris, still chocolate at the end of the day and still doing her thing. Let her light shine. Give us some contact information. I mean, I don't know. Of course, I know a lot of the Christian market right now is a bit slow due to the pandemic, especially in the within the church walls. So, but how can people still stay connected? If you want them to stay connected, or how can people still in some ways be in contact, follow, and just by all means, just feed off the glow, the chocolate glow that you have?
Well, all of my social media handle is I'm still chocolate. So you can get me, or you can just go hit me on, you can Google me, Chinitta Morris. And yeah, I'm still chocolate on Twitter, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or just Chinitta Morris.
Any special shout outs before we close out?
No, I don't. No, I don't have any shout outs. Shout out to the ATL. No longer there, but man, 29 years of the best years of my life, and I'm grateful. Not sure if God will lead me back there, but yeah, the ATL was everything. I praise God for my journey there.
There it is. Thank you so much for joining us, Miss Chinitta Chocolate Morris. John Huey Radio checking in with you. Y'all keep it locked, man. Still more to come, and we are out. Peace.
Music, interviews, podcasts, and so much more. John Huey Radio, next level.